Welcome to Season 2 of the Workforce Situation Room, where we spotlight some of the promising and innovative solutions that address some of our most pressing workforce and economic challenges. Our mission at Workforce Solutions Borderplex is to power businesses to prosperity by empowering people with tools and opportunities to reach their potential in the workforce. I'm Bianca, your host, and I stand alongside our ladies of leadership at Workforce Solutions Borderplex with Leila Melendez, our CEO, Alma Aranda, Workforce Development Director, and Karina Castillo, our Senior Research Analyst. In this room, we all believe every situation has a solution. For today's episode, here's the situation.
The primary goal of Workforce Solutions is to empower the community by infusing businesses with the resources to thrive and elevate the economy, thanks to our business services units across Texas.
We're here. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us. We have Susanna and Diana from Permian Basin Workforce Solutions out there. We met, actually, believe it or not, we met at the TWC Forum, Susanna and I. And we did a presentation on outreach and things like that. So it was like a little presentation panel. And I got to meet Susanna right after that. We sat at the same table and then just kind of started catching up. And then I found out that Permian Basin also has their own podcast, which is really cool.
Oh, nice.
So I'll explain to you, Denise, kind of how this ended up coming to happen is when Susanna and I were chatting, I learned that she had the podcast, but that she also, it was run by, her production team is a business services team. So it's kind of a wild setup, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit of just how that came to happen.
Okay, so we were just kind of sitting down and talking about how we can reach more people. How do we get them to listen? How do we get them aware of Workforce Solutions Permian Basin in our area? And we have a lot of rural communities. So we have 5 offices, and one of our challenges is reaching out to those rural communities and letting them know about our services, right? So we talked about several different things, and, podcast is just really popular right now. And so we're like, okay, great. Let's read up, let's do some research on some podcasting, and let's run with it. And so we hired a gentleman for our BSU department who had a little bit of background in some podcasting and YouTube. He kind of just did it on the side. And he was kind of a recruiter for one of the oil field companies here. And, when the oil field took a downturn, he was looking to get out of the industry and something more stable. And so we were like, hey, why don't you come do these things for us, and let's see where it goes. And so that's how it started.
So cool. I love that. And so but Denise Arieta, who's also with Workforce Solutions here at Borderplex, she's the BSU business manager. So she works with business services, and I thought that this would be a great opportunity to have a conversation, hear what's happening, for you all to hear what's happening on our little tip of Texas and what's happening over there in Permian Basin. So if you can, Denise, tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day is, aside from running around in chaos and wearing beautiful sashes for your birthday. We've experienced our day-to-day. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what you do and what the whole BSU thing is here at Borderplex.
I think it's interesting because BSU, everyone thinks that it's just businesses, but you work with businesses and job seekers, right? You're the connection between both.
Right.
And the way that our business services is structured, so we do a lot of outreach and education and promotion to employers about the services that are available here, about how to connect to people, about how to expand to different different populations, right? So, okay, you've been doing this for a long time, and maybe right now, especially with everything that's going on, like, how do we make sure that you stay innovative and competitive and that you're able to continue to attract that talent? And so we've done a lot of different forums and workshops, and we're doing HR seminars. We're doing, traditional job fairs, hiring events, different things like that to continue to connect them to what their core is, right? The core of the business is they got to hire people. So that's what we continue to do, but then we're also innovative in attracting different things, bringing, like the Untapped Talent forum that we had, right? Where we're talking to them about like, hey, there's this whole Untapped Talent series that we want to talk about and what that does and how do you connect with non-traditional populations for employers. So they've always been there, right? But employers didn't really have to go outside of that. So a lot of what we're doing is that, talking to them about like, how are you attracting talent right now? Let's talk about what's working, what's not working. Let's talk about, how do we keep you innovative? And with that, we also work with all of our other managers for the different programs to ensure that what we're hearing from business is what we're giving to the job seeker. So, hey, this is what the employers are looking for. Like, let's guide you through that and make sure that you're competitive and that you're marketable and all of that.
I think that is so important right now. And I find it really interesting. So one of our challenges here is I know that you might be aware that we serve 6 counties at Borderplex. El Paso obviously being the largest, it's a larger city, but we do have a lot of rural counties out there. And that's actually one of our pain points, just reaching out to them, because distance makes that, a challenge. And we do have offices out there, but I'm curious, tell us a little bit about what your operations like on the business services aspect and how you're handling those challenges.
Okay, I'm going to let Diana take this because she is actually in the business service unit. So I'm going to let her take this question.
So very similar to what Ms. Denise was saying, we do the same aspect. I do a lot of the traveling through the rural areas and do that outreach to the schools, to the employers. But, all of the other offices do an excellent job being so engaged with the community. I think one of the biggest things also is being so involved with the chambers, new businesses, what is happening in that area. And I think that's one of the key points on how we can kind of stay in the know with us. But yeah, all throughout all of our services, we try to carry that when we're doing those presentations, the training program, the childcare programs. So bringing that out, ensuring that it's consistent enough for them to, like you're saying, transportation is a big issue. So our biggest office for us is the Odessa office. So ensuring that they're able to know where they can go, what is their nearest location. We have developed, things where we put in our social media, a flyer that has QR codes to make it easily and accessible, especially for students. Their mindset is more at a speed rate. So you want them to be engaged. So we put QR codes where they'll be able to have our location. They'll be able to have the training, childcare. So everything all in one. So, really and truly what it is, that one-stop shop for them. So that outreach, it just doesn't stop, just making that networking connection with it. I think the chambers really is one of the biggest things that has helped us, but just building those relationships with the employers as well.
And so I think it's important that we're talking about business services. And actually one of the reasons I wanted to even make this a central topic is a lot of the attention has been on job seekers. There's actually I would even go as far as to saying that misconception, maybe you all deal with this at Permian Basin, but the misconception that Workforce Solutions is the unemployment office, it tends to also, I think it's like a Texas-sized problem, right? But it also tends to indicate that we are just here for job seekers, when in reality, they're more like a secondary customer for us, because if there are no employers, there's no jobs available for these job seekers. And so obviously developing that workforce and pumping up the talent with skills and as education and training is a priority, so that the businesses could have a robust talent pool to pick from. But we do need to make sure that our businesses are taken care of first and foremost, because if once they're taken care of, they have the talent pool, then we can also expand economically and just keep expanding as a state, as a big Texas team, right? So tell me a little bit about, so you first, Denise. You have been with Borderplex, long enough, especially you and I, shoulder to shoulder, come underwater when the pandemic landed, and dealing with that surge of workers that didn't have jobs. But ever since, we've been recovering since, and there's this narrative that's been going on for quite a bit that we call the Great Resignation. And sometimes it's being called the worker shortage. What are some of the struggles that you're seeing with businesses as we slowly start to recover, as in terms of the Great Resignation, and how are we dealing with that?
I think that one of the biggest things for us is talking to employers about and it's going to sound repetitive.
Let it.
But I'm like, but really,
Let it out.
I think that what we saw in a lot of industries, especially, there was a lot of people that were retiring, right? That when the pandemic started and individuals had to go work remotely and they had to do a lot of stuff, then, you know, a lot of people said like, okay, I'm retiring. I don't have to like deal with that per se, right? Because it was a lot of change for someone, including businesses. So we had to talk to businesses about how to stay or keep their business afloat. Like, how can we shift the way that you've been doing business to continue to do business and keep you open, but differently? It's not going to look the same as it did. And it's interesting because a lot of employers thought that, you know, once everything starts to open up, we're going to go back to how things were. And it's been really important to let them know that it's never going to look the way that it did.
Oh my gosh. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
And that is very hard to swallow, especially for people who have done business the same way for a long time. Of course, you know, it's just conversations that you have to have with businesses. You know, when we were in the middle of the pandemic, we were asking businesses, like, what kind of work can someone do remotely? Does somebody have to be in the office? And for a lot of them, like the service industry, the answer is yes, they have to be here, right? But for a lot of other businesses, they didn't have to be. It was just what it looked like for a long time. And so it was asking them to look at those other positions within their business that could allow for that. And then that also led us to have conversations about, you know, what we've talked about with family-centered employment. Like, how are you looking at your workers overall, right? Because the pandemic changed so many things like mental health and family and school. And so there was a lot of changes, and they were things that we had to talk about with employers. It's been a conversation that we've had to continue because, you know, and even because if you worked hybrid for 2 years, why can't you continue that, right? And so, again, it's a hard thing to go to because we thought initially, like, this is what it's like right now, and then we'll go back to how things were. And it just can't completely go back to what it was. And so it's conversations that we're obviously having to have with employers and asking them to look at people as a whole, because talking about the Great Resignation, a lot of people talk about the size of the workforce and people don't want to go back to work. Well, a lot of people can't go back to work, right? Because a mom who takes care of her kids, they've been pushed to different things, childcare. There's a lot of different things that come up. And so the conversations with employers have shifted to look at childcare. Do you offer childcare as part of a benefit? Do you partner with a childcare facility? You know, is there hybrid or remote work opportunities that you can help support that person in that balance of their life, you know? So at first it was a little challenging.
Resistance.
There was a lot of resistance. But over time, when employers have seen that things are not going back, then they're coming back to us and saying, okay, you know what? Help me stay, not afloat. That's not the right word, but like help me stay competitive, right? And so when we talk about pay and we talk about our living wage and we talk about a lot of those things, I ask employers, like, it's not always about pay. What else can you do for this business? Like, what makes you stand out? What are you doing differently? What flexibility do you have that's going to encourage this person to come and work for you? Outside of, okay, you pay, because what we thought at first is like, oh, you're not paying enough. And so we had businesses who paid $20 an hour who were still struggling. So we're like, it's not about pay. It's
Interesting.
About a lot of other, it's a combination of things.
Are you, well, thank you. That was super, I mean, insightful, because I hadn't heard that much of it, that side of it. What are the conversations like with you, Diana and Susanna, on both a job seeker aspect and a business aspect when it comes to the Great Resignation? What are you all dealing with on your end, and what industries maybe, once you answer that, what industries maybe are you seeing that a lot of this resistance is coming from, or a lot of the acceptance is coming from?
So Denise hit on a lot of those points. You know, first, I think that the employers have to understand why the employees are quitting. Why are people leaving their jobs, right? Why is it called the Great Resignation? And so half of the issue is understanding why they left and how you can address those, right? So you touched on a lot of those points, that they felt like, the pay was low. They felt like they were, their work-life balance, they found out that, hey, I can work and be productive at home and still be here for my family. And so, that became really important to them. And then some of them felt like there just wasn't enough advancement. Employees felt like there wasn't enough opportunity to advance within the companies that they were working for. And so, you have to sit back and think about that and how many people actually left their jobs. I think it was reported like 47.8 million people quit their jobs in 2021. And it's still continuing. We thought that, maybe it had something to do with the benefits. Maybe we were offering too much. The government was offering too much money, too much benefits, and it's like we expected that to turn around once those were done, right? They expected people to come back to work, looking for jobs at the very last moment when they had their last check come in, unemployment checks, and that didn't happen.
I remember those job fairs. We thought we were going to be
like, they're coming,
overcrowded. They're going to be here. They're going to be
getting, and we're like, they're not here
Crickets.
yet.
Yeah,
we waited for months.
Yes. And so it's like, you have to sit back and think, okay, what is it that we need to do to attract? So Denise touched on, some of those about, the flexibility. Maybe we don't need to work Monday through Friday, or Monday through Sunday. Maybe we can be just as productive Monday through Thursday, and let them have Friday off. Or maybe we need to not do 8 to 5, maybe, 9 to 6 or 12 to 7, like just the flexible schedules and offering that to the employees, the hybrid model, maybe we can work some remote days and, at home, and maybe we can work in the office too. How does that look? What does it look like, and can it work?
And another thing I would like to add on is to the opportunity and the power of word of mouth. We had a lot of people come get training because the oil field was so high up here that once that went down, they were telling, their coworkers, their friends, their family members. So that's when I think a lot of eye-opening experience for many of them, especially in this area, where they realized these high-in-demand jobs that people don't really look twice at will be your steady jobs, will be something that you can come to us, we can train you, you'll be certified, you'll be licensed, that the next time, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it does, you'll have a secure job, because a lot of these employers were keeping their certified, their licensed employees that they could benefit off of versus somebody that didn't have that higher education. So I think that little bit of what we've been pushing and talking about to the community about our training services really just flourished during these past 2 years in really just showing the community how much we can educate someone, train them, and keep them still in our community with competitive pay. And, like you guys were saying, no, it's not about the pay, but I think at this point it was like that light at the end of the tunnel, that I don't have to recruit back to retail and hospitality, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. But when you go from the oil field to something as different to that, it's a game changer. So I think the training and pushing that just really was a huge impact here.
Interesting. And I'm curious, Diana, are you boots on the ground? Like, are you having these direct conversations with employers yourself?
Yes. So talking to them about what they're seeing, how we see it on our end as well. They have many questions, like questions from why can't we hire? And it's exactly what you're saying. So not only are we going to start off the conversation like any other person, what are you paying? Are you disclosing that? What are your benefits? There's employers that offer, a mid-range, and it's not bad at all, but they have great benefits that come with it, especially if it's oil field related. So if they're not paying that high wage, maybe they're offering housing benefits. I know that at some point there was like transportation, groceries. So there's things that these employers are starting to really venture out to really capture that, because they notice that they will lose the people if that opportunity arises to go back to the oil field for, in this case, close to $30 an hour. So these are conversations that they're not the most comfortable for the employers to admit to themselves, but it's just the reality of where we are in this location, at least.
It sounds like, I mean, post-COVID, I love that you brought up, Susanna, the whole thing about the benefits. Aside from the fact that we had some job fairs that probably weren't as well attended as we anticipated, it was actually, I was in a sense glad that it proved that the benefits weren't the reason, that lazy narrative or that milking narrative was not true. I mean, to that extent, right? So I'm glad that happened, and that actually gave workers a lot of leverage. It's almost as if the pandemic empowered the workforce, because it made them, if not level up skills wise, education wise, and training wise, it gave them that opportunity to spend more time, more quality of life time with families. It made them recalibrate and rethink, what am I doing with my life? Like when you have so think about it. We normally have like 2 weeks of vacation a year, and it takes maybe 4 or 5 days to 100% disconnect from the chaos. And then we finally like start to get used to it. And then before you know it, we have to start getting ready to start thinking about going back, packing our bags again, going to the airport, whatever, right? That's 2 weeks, 10 business days. These individuals got 2 years of complete reflection. And yeah, they're going to come back like, I know what I want out of my life now. And so they have a lot of leverage, and I can totally understand what's going on. And then especially if you talk about childcare and moms and families, and, you know, if they found a way to do it on stretched budgets and they're happier, that's like, it goes just right back to that money doesn't buy happiness. I mean, it really doesn't, you know? So I'm glad we're talking about these things in terms of pay doesn't have everything to do with it. And that purpose is leading with the workforce, purpose and what they know they want. But we're starting to, so we had a whole bunch of headlines about the worker shortage narrative, the whole Great Resignation, but you're starting to see those headlines get replaced by this threat of a recession coming on, right? And I'll be the first to say that there are some really big things happening in terms of the economy. I've personally experienced, I get so busy sometimes, like I'll give you a quick example. I get so busy sometimes that I don't have time to cook. I don't have time to do the grocery shopping. So I'm the bad person that will Uber Eats it or go out to eat or sometimes not eat. Or whatever. Maybe I'll boil like a whole dozen eggs and just like carry them, right? But
she's all meal prepping.
So I hadn't really like had a chance to go grocery shopping for a long time. And since we're working from home too, we're not filling up our tanks as often, right? Like we come into work once or twice a week. So anyhow, in the past couple weeks and just in this past week, I have a really tough trainer that's like not letting me do the Uber Eats anymore. So I had to actually go grocery shopping cart, didn't even get them delivered. I went to Sprouts with the shopping cart and I said, I'm going to get all fruits, all veggies, and all the proteins, right? And I'm just replenishing my fridge, maybe from a first time, you know, like from scratch. I didn't really have anything in the fridge. Some things like mac and cheese, Lunchables. I had like toddler things, but no like real food. And I could not believe the price. I almost was like, what did I get? You know, and I'm looking at my cart, but it was close to $300 in groceries. And granted, like, it was Sprouts and there may be a little bit, but even then, I've been to Sprouts before and
Walmart
I have never paid in my life. Well, I just kind of, and like my receipt was pretty decent. I mean, yeah, mom receipt, but I was just, whoa, you know, so it's happening. And then my, filling up the tank, forget it. You know, that's a whole, you guys have, that's some sticker shock. What did I see? I saw a funny meme about the gas prices and like seeing, Oh, I finally got the raise I wanted. Oh, never mind. It was like something. So never mind. That's just what I'm paying for gas or something. I was like something similar to that. But anyhow, something, I don't know what's going to happen in terms of the economy, but people's confidence. It definitely made me think twice about like, okay, maybe maybe I'm better off just going to restaurants and being served at this point, right?
Recalculate how much I'm spending.
So yeah, it's crazy. So now that we have this looming potential recession, right? Like we don't know if it's already happened. We don't know. There's inflation. There's businesses starting to kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, the jobs are still there. There's still opportunity. But if this recession does start to happen, or even if it just tiptoes around, the first things to go when it comes to consumer confidence is going to be the retail, the hospitality. Again, those same industries that got hard hit by the pandemic are going to be hit again. And that's going to change this leverage that we have with work, that workers have now, this empowerment, because you're going to start kind of chipping away at that feeling of confidence. I anticipate, maybe not entirely, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? And how are we kind of preparing for that business wise?
I'm just thinking of supply chain. We've been looking at supply chain struggles.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
for the last 2 years. So I'm thinking of businesses, right? More than anything. The trucking industry is struggling right now because, and just from feedback that we've gotten, diesel has doubled in price. So the cost of them, so they're having to pay drivers more because it's a job seeker market, right? So that they can demand more money. So they're paying drivers more, they're paying more for diesel, but the work itself, like the load price of what they're getting, is still the same. And so businesses are losing out on stuff like that. Thinking of construction, right? Like they've struggled to get materials. So prices of houses have gone up. Mm-hmm. Right now, a lot of people aren't buying houses because interest rates are so high. So I can't say what is going to happen, but I do feel for businesses from like a construction perspective, from a trucking perspective, logistics, things like that. I'm just thinking of, it's been rough on them the last 2 years.
Gosh.
I don't want to think about but we're hearing it already. Like I can't, they're trying to build houses, but people aren't buying houses. Personal story, I have a friend who's been trying to sell her house before. A couple months ago, the house was on the market for a day and it's gone. Now it's been a month. No offers, they've had to change the price of the home. So there's a lot of things that I don't know what that is going to look like, but I've seen it just impacting because of gas prices and things of that. I've seen it impact the supply chain and I've seen it impact trucking.
Oh gosh. I don't know. Do you all have anything to weigh in on the whole thought process of a potential recession business wise?
So I think that, just the whole potential recession issue, I think we're going to have those difficult conversations again with the employers and talk to them about what are you doing to prepare in case this happens, right? So what are the solutions? They're going to have to look at their business plans again. They're going to have to, maybe the pandemic was, not so bad in preparing them for that because, as people are remote working, it reduces the overhead cost. Maybe they don't need that building that they're renting. Maybe they don't need that shop. People can, go home or work from home and, the wages may have been a little more, but you're also saving on the other end of that as far as the overhead cost, electricity, rent, all of those utility things. So maybe, talking to them about paying off some of those debts that they may have, make sure that, you have more liquid assets, and not so much debt, getting those extra trucks and, things like that. And just talking to them about, cutting expenses, managing their inventories. And they're going to have to get creative, right? Just like we did when the pandemic hit. We had to get creative. A lot of companies were not ready to send their employees home, to work from home remotely. Us, for one, our workforce was not ready to work from home. And so we had to, buy laptops in bulk, make sure everybody had internet connection at home. If they didn't, provide those hotspots, and then waiting for laptops to come because, of course, the supply, wasn't there. Like, we had to wait, because of all of the logistics, and all of those things played a part in it. So I think that, we're going to have those conversations with the employers and just, talk about some of the things that may need to happen to prepare in case it does, even though we're already doing some of those things. And so, it may not be as bad as we think it's going to be, because some of those things, essential things, are going to still be there, right? You still have to put gas in your car. You still have to eat. So you're still going to buy groceries. Some of the luxury items may not be there, like, doing your hair and nails and, things like that. Those might, have to go. But
we all look at our hands. Everybody did the same thing. Yeah.
Diana, I'll let Diana kind of talk about, what she's seeing, since she does a little more one-on-one with the employers. But
yeah, I think Susanna gets it right on point. The creativity, I think, will now be there. During the pandemic, we all had to get creative. We all had to establish ourselves to, if I'm going to find a job that requires me to work remote, do I have the space at home? As for the job seeker, can I afford to be at home with my kids, with everything else going on? Do I have the space for it? For the employers, the same thing, reducing that cost and being prepared for it. But I think just that creativity and being prepared for it, fortunately and unfortunately, the pandemic kind of prepared us for that, kind of just at a blink of an eye. And now I just think it's just a matter of educating the job seeker, at least for the job seeker end, to manage their budgets. I know that's one of the things that we do through our training program is, what does your budget look like? What are you spending your money on? What are your bills? And can you afford to go to school? So just educating really the public in general on how to manage finances, because it's been 2 years now. So we want to ensure that we, like the luxury items. Yeah. And there's so much that comes to it. So an example, like you guys were saying, your nails, your hair, so many has arisen from that of doing it at home, trial and error, of course. But, you start to get creative. You start to be more innovative on what you start doing, that I think both employer and job seekers will be able to manage it fairly well. It's still going to be a struggle, but I think I feel like it would be manageable it's just discipline at the end of the day. It's just making sure you have that discipline.
I agree with you, Diana. And I'm thinking, so you're mentioning supply chain and construction and just truck driving, right? I'll tell y'all, I recently went on a trip to Disneyland. I took my daughter to Disneyland for her birthday, and we went to Anaheim, and it was super cute. But we went to Anaheim. Well, we stayed in Long Beach one of those days, and I rented a car. It was ridiculous prices for rentals too.
Rentals are hard. They're hard to come by right now. Oh, it's crazy.
I was like, how much? I should have just hired a driver and paid him. But anyhow, so we're driving over this bridge in Long Beach, and we went to go for the sightseeing route, because it was a bridge. It was some bridge. It dawned on me after we passed it, but we were at a port, and the number of the crates that you saw, they were stacked, and they were it actually looked beautiful. It looked like a weird video game community, but there were just thousands, and it just went on for an entire bridge and on, just crates of all this stuff of what's happening there? And I'm driving and, trying to listen to Siri and not get lost, but I'm in my head thinking oh my God, this is the whole thing. This is the problem. These are the supplies that are not being delivered, or not enough drivers. And it was incredible to be able to drive through that. And I'm like, what's it? You know what really like blew my mind is what is in all these things like plastic and toilet paper.
Girl, what
and
are people
like,
missing right
what
now?
What are people not getting?
What is not
But
delivered?
it brings me back to, so you reminded me of it as you were talking about the driver situation and the supplies, logistics, all that stuff. And, you know, you realize because of the pandemic, we all got very comfortable, extremely comfortable. I mean, I went from being like a once in a while Amazon user to first time I went grocery shopping and I don't know how long last week, right? Like everything gets delivered, everything gets ordered. But think about that. We're almost kind of contributing to the problem of the shipping and all of that. Granted, the supplies are still going to be necessary at a store, but the whole driver situation, like FedEx and UPS and all of that stuff too, they're needing to deliver it to our homes because we're just so comfortable. I don't know.
I'm going to throw something out there and I don't know if it follows, but like,
no, bring it.
So we
Spit it.
hired a ton of people because of these high purchases, right? Everybody was buying Amazon and you were getting 6 packages a week.
Yes.
So Amazon and all of these companies hired a ton of people.
Oh yeah, we had a big job fair for them, right?
And recently, they're still very busy.
Yes.
But across the country, sales have declined significantly. So talking about inflation and all of that, it's decreased. And so companies are laying off.
Oh no.
And it's, again, going back to what we were talking about, I don't know what that looks like, but then that impacts us greatly because there was a lot of jobs created. And so if there's no money to buy goods, they're not buying Amazon 6 times a week because you got to pay for groceries.
So then,
and
so
you
it's
got to
like
pay. You know, so it's
a problem solves another problem.
it's kind of, again, it for me, it's very interesting, like where we are and where we're going and where businesses are struggling because they're very established businesses that are, but you depend on the consumer. So if the consumer can't consume the way it used to, then it impacts your workforce also.
It's everywhere. It's like so really cool thing that we talked about. I was sitting in Layla's office yesterday and you know how we go out. We call ourselves the hype team oftentimes. Denise's street team. I mean, it's our business services team. That's one of our names that we say. We hype people up, right? We were trying to get people motivated during the pandemic when times were really not great. But now we're like, okay, well, hype, right? Like everybody's hype, but things are going to kind of start going downhill for a bit. How can we maintain? And one of the terms that we've been using since the beginning, I remember the first time hearing it thinking, wow, you know, communications over here, like that's good. And Layla said economic first responders. And I think every Workforce Solutions board is an economic first responder, was an economic first responder because you had health first, like, I mean, it was a crisis in so many ways, right? But we were definitely the first responders. I mean, we weren't even equipped for it, but we all became, all of us, every single workforce board in the country, the world, if they have them in other, we're economic first responders. So we're starting to think towards that, and I feel like we want to put like Chewie in an ambulance cartoon or something, but we need some type of toolkit for these businesses and like the ones that are having to lay off. But we're also going to need like our toolkit for the workers that are getting laid off. I mean, everybody from Amazon. And I mean, we talked about recovery, all these jobs. Amazon brought what? Like, I asked Crystal this. Crystal works at Amazon. I think they brought like 1,500 jobs. 1,500.
I think it's like, last time I checked, it was like 700. It's a lot of jobs.
In the beginning, it was, but when I asked her recently because we submitted them for an award. It was up to 1,500. So it's a lot of people that got jobs and very good paying jobs, right? And very good benefits. And I mean, I'm talking like they got good benefits at Amazon. So we have to. But here's what I got excited about. Me and Layla is we went through this once, and I mean. Oh, we're still kind of like coming up, right? We're still throwing punches, but I feel like we're going to come back to this a lot more prepared. And I think these solutions that we're already starting to talk about a little bit for businesses, for job seekers, we kind of have I think we still have fight left in us, and I think we're going to be well prepared. But I think we really need to start owning the fact that and yelling it out that we are, as an entire state, economic first responders at all the Workforce Solutions boards, and that kind of just gives you, I don't know, that gives me a little bit of a
empowering.
It's empowering. Like, it's like, yeah, we're gonna fix this, and we have a lot of things on our side because I'm gonna try to remain optimistic. A recession doesn't seem as scary as a pandemic, like a world pandemic. I'll never forget the first time I went to Walmart and I saw everybody wearing masks. It was my first like outing, and it did something to me. I stopped mid-step and I was like, whoa, this is happening. I got scared. But recession doesn't sound as scary because I went through it in 2008.
I mean, and I think that it's different, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like scary because we're hearing it differently, but we're like,
But
it's
we're
not
ready.
a worldwide pandemic. And like you said, there's tools that we have and we've learned from it, and we have the opportunity and the connections. And I think we're in a really good point also because businesses come to us and are like, hey, help me, support
trust
me,
us.
guide me through that, right? And same thing with the job seekers. And so I think we're in a very different place when we're talking about that, in connecting to resources and, being able to help them through that. So yes, I completely agree. All of this to say, yes, I agree with you. But I think that we are economic first responders and that we are in a very different place than we were 2 years ago.
Yes.
Both with job seekers and businesses, with the way that they look at us and come to us and trust us and have seen us advocate for them through the entire process, that I'm sure that it will be kind of the same.
No, we're ready. We're ready with our tools, and maybe we gotta, I don't know, probably prep a few things, some literature. That's on my side.
You gotta
That's on
fluff
me.
Chewy up a little bit.
Do you all have anything to add on? I mean, just the whole concept of economic first responders, or anything else in terms of businesses and what we should prepare for in the near future?
I think it's great. I haven't heard that. So I think it's great. I think you're right. Like, I think, more businesses through the pandemic, I think our awareness got better. And so the community was aware, like you said, because they felt like we were the unemployment office. So we had, thousands of people coming to the office or calling. We had to set up a whole calling center, just to handle the amount of calls that were coming through. Because, the Permian Basin is a little bit different. Oil and gas is huge in our area. So we had, thousands of workers that did not live in the Permian Basin, but worked in the Permian Basin. So, companies had to get really creative in trying to, get employees to the Permian Basin. So like Diana was talking about providing housing. And then some employers, the oil field companies, were flying in people from different areas, to work, and provided housing for them, 21 days on, 3 days off, 14 on, 7 off. Like, there were different type of schedules. And so, that plays a huge part in our economy in the Permian Basin, because we had so many people outside of the area that did not live in Permian Basin that worked. And so when, the pandemic hit, we were hit with thousands of calls. And so, I think that, the economic first responder analogy that you use, I mean, it's exactly what we were.
Let's own it, all of us.
We should get shirts that say that.
We'll mail some out to you. Sorry. With Chewy in an ambulance.
In the workforce vehicle.
I like that whole Chewy and ambulance.
You know who Chewy is, right? He's our little mascot. He's our little mascot that we use, and we've, oh my gosh, we've made him Pitbull Chewy. We've made him Chewy Fairy, because he's just like, and we've just printed some shirts with the fairy for our childcare center, and he's just looking at us like, why? But now we're gonna.
Because he's real.
But see, Candlelight's husband is a fire chief, so we're gonna get his equipment and make him literally a first responder. We'll see. We're gonna have fun with it. Poor Chewy. He doesn't know it yet. I hope he doesn't hear this before we tell him.
Come meet Chewy in person.
You really do need to meet Chewy. He is a character. He is a character. We'll bring him to the conference or something. I'll ask Layla.
Can we bring Chewy?
Can we bring Chewy to the conference?
In his first responder shirt.
You can incorporate him in one of your workshops that you do. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be fun. All righty. Well, I don't know. I think we covered quite a bit. I'm optimistic. I did want to add another reason that I'm optimistic is that because we've gone through this, we're kind of like, we went through like a boot camp of chaos. I feel like we're ready for anything. I'm kind of almost challenging the recession. I'm kind of like, bring it.
I think the term just sounds so heavy. I feel like it's more the word,
hiccup?
no? Yeah. Like,
what's the, okay, so you have depression, recession. What's the one right above it? I should know this. Hiccup?
I'm all anxiety.
Anxiety.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Just a little.
But I'm confident. Yeah. I'm confident that we're going to be able to respond well as a state.
A speed bump.
A speed bump.
Like maybe a little bigger. The ones that they have at the schools that are a little bit taller, but it's still just a
the really big square speed bumps. The new age ones. Yeah, we're ready. And I think employers are ready too, just because we've all just kind of been forced to transform virtually, operationally, to be able to adapt to it. And you mentioned something, Susanna, about, making sure that employers know that workers want different types of benefits. But in this case, the overhead situation, it's like you're appeasing the worker, but you're also cutting your costs. Like it's benefits all around.
I think it's just a mental thing. I think it's just hard for you to change what you've been doing for so long and something that worked for you, right? Yeah. It may have worked for 20 years. And so inviting them to look outside of that is the challenge. It's the hiccup, right? But it's not something that they can't do. And that's what we're here for. We're here to walk you through that process and encourage you and help you explore waters that maybe you haven't explored before. But I think that's important and something, if employers are listening, the resources are available to you. And that's exactly what we're here for. And talk to us. And we're your partner in that journey.
You sound like a therapist. Businesses, if businesses are listening.
Line, right? Because everybody cares about the bottom line. So, actually sometimes it helps to see it. It helps to see, kind of analyze, what your costs are, what you would be saving if, you offered that remote work.
That's a good point.
It's like a business coaching.
What about like asking them, for those that were comfortable, what do y'all think? I mean, you work in the business, you Diana, you work closely with businesses. I'm not sure how close these relationships can be, but that's a really good point, Susanna. Like if you were to ask them for their financials and give them maybe a rework of it, like here's what we project might happen if you shifted and did more of this work from home, or were more flexible, or applied more of these benefits to your environment and potentially at least hold you over through the potential recession, but and show them like, here's what you could make.
I think, yes. So some of the stuff that we're doing, we call them HR seminars, but it's like, there's businesses that started during the pandemic too, that maybe need some business coaching. We talked about people that were doing, things that they hadn't done before and they turned it into a business. So there's opportunities through those seminars to do that coaching, like bringing in experts to talk about financials, and help them revisit a business plan, develop business plans, because there's a lot of businesses, especially in El Paso, we have a huge amount of small businesses. And so being able to provide that guidance also to them.
Something as simple. I mean, they come in hurt, they leave healed and even better than they were before. So cool. All right, businesses, if you're listening, Denise, if you're in Texas, in El Paso, Texas, or the Borderplex area, Denise is your girl. She has a couch.
Amalka Solutions are our middle name. I'm throwing all the plugs in.
And if you're in Permian Basin, you have Diana and you have Susanna. You guys have a great team out there. So thank you, ladies, so much for joining us today. This was really fun. This was refreshing. I feel good. It was cold in here, but that's not why it was refreshing. It was really refreshing.
It was literally refreshing. No.
So thank you all so much.
We're eager to hear your feedback. Find us on Twitter and LinkedIn and let it out. We don't always have a choice in the situations we face, but you do have a choice in subscribing to Solutions. Join the Workforce Situation Room on your favorite podcast platform and hit subscribe, where you'll find a solution to every situation. The best way to serve the community is to get real and understand the pulse of the Borderplex. Till next month, thanks for listening.